It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Welcome to the Sam Lesante Show, folks, on the road to the 2016 elections. Hey, folks, today I'm going to have a conversation with a very good friend of mine. I've said this on my show many times. You build up a reputation in life and you build a character up. And I've said, about Senator John Yudichak. I find him to be a very sincere, honest person, and would love to see him governor someday, and I mean that sincerely. I very seldom say that, John, because I've known you throughout the years. I don't agree with you on a lot of things, and I think that's what makes things healthy. A good debate always makes things healthy. But you're in the 14th Senatorial District, and there are 50, you said there are 50 state senators, okay? So now, you've been involved with a lot of things in your district and also in the state of Pennsylvania. We hear so much today, and you see the TV ads, and you sort of like, who tells you they're this, who tells you they're that. It's like it's hard to decipher, who, other than a debate, that you can really see the person in action. What has been your success? And you've been very successful in your district. What do you attribute that to?
Well, one, I certainly can feel and sense the frustration in the general public where politics happens to be at this moment, whether it's on the national stage or on the state level. And when I was younger, I could never understand that. I could never understand because my father and mother had raised me in a political family, in a family that was about public service, in a family that was about being engaged in your community. So I could never understand why folks didn't want to be involved in politics. I have a better sense of that now, why they get so frustrated. Because, yes, we're going to disagree. I always use the standard line, I grew up with 5 sisters and now I have 4 beautiful daughters. I've never been 100% right, ever. It's never happened. So we have politicians now that want it 100%. You either agree with them 100% or you're the enemy. That's not life. That's not how regular, good, old-fashioned Americans go through their life. They compromise, they work together, and I think my strength has been finding common ground with Democrats, Republicans, with independents, with folks that aren't engaged in the political process, that aren't even registered, drawing them in on some core values, making sure they have a safe neighborhood, making sure they have economic opportunities, a chance to get a good job, and to make sure that their children get educated, in addition to have access to affordable health care. Those kind of common issues that people talk about at the image that I try to draw all the time, their kitchen table. When folks sit around and they turn off the news, they shut off their iPads and their iPhones, and they sit down and talk about the issues that matter to them, it usually comes back to those core issues.
You hear, and that's so forth because, when you're born with a substance, and, we sat around the dinner table at night, and, you did the same with your parents as well. And unfortunately, we don't have that today because of the demands of life. But John, there are so many concerns that, you say, they're the typical politicians, okay? And Ethel Price, remember Ethel Price? She was a county commissioner. She served on the board with me at the Luzerne County Community College. I got to know her very well. And, she's always politicians. Her husband, Ollie, was a Wilkes-Barre city councilman. But she said to me, about politicians, she says, good politics makes for good government, okay? And we do need people like you. We need people to represent us. But the thing, sometimes people become so negative on politics. Hey, he's just a politician, okay? And sometimes I think when you're really trying to do your best, okay, you got 50 U.S. State senators, you have to deal, you have to bring your plans. I think communication is extremely important. And, when someone says, oh, they're just politicians, how do you react to that? Well, you have to hear that.
Part of it is the media. And I've said when folks have asked me, particularly about this national election, what has changed? How did it get to this place where it's so hateful in tone, so cynical in tone? In the 1960s, television changed presidential politics. Yeah. In the 80s and 90s, cable television changed and revolutionized politics. And now you're seeing social media, which has an anonymity to it. And that's created where you have very partisan special interest groups driving a narrative, demonizing the other side. We need to step away from that. You can certainly disagree with an idea. It doesn't mean the person that's advancing the idea is a bad person. We have to find a way to communicate and to work together in a civil tone, in a civil way, for the greater good. It's about the greater good. It should not be about the advancements necessarily of the Democrat or the Republican Party. Unfortunately, they're a whole industry unto themselves. And that's what drives it. So I get frustrated sometimes. I get pushback, particularly on energy issues from my own party. I was recently attacked by various groups on the environmental activist community because of my position on whether it's coal or whether it's natural gas. And I understand that, but they go for the negative. They go for the cynicism rather than let's have a conversation about jobs. Let's have a conversation about energy. Let's have a conversation about education. We've gotten away from the conversation and we're focused too much on the cynicism.
And I'm glad you brought that up because here again, and I fall victim to this, okay, because sometimes I may make a statement, and I'm always, John, if I make a statement, I'll apologize, okay? I try to just bring information to the general public. So, and as I told you, I have no planned script here today. I just wanted to talk to John Yudichak because someday you will be our governor, okay? And you better come on the Sam Lesante Show. But, that energy situation, all right? When you have, if our station, SSP TV, if we had an agenda, we're a liberal, and I don't care, we're conservative. And when you have that agenda, it's not good. It's not healthy. I don't think they understood what you were about, the education, what the coal industry has done, as you know, with Atlantic Carbon up here and what they're doing and providing. That's the thing that frustrates me when I see the negativism with the liberal media today. And I'm not, listen, Trump is not the greatest, and neither is Hillary. But the point is, I think when you see the New York Times and CNN and all these people who are just one-sided, that's not, they hammered you for something that wasn't right.
Well, on the energy issue, we've reduced carbon emissions in Pennsylvania by 20% just over in the last 5 or 6 years. That's a great story.
Yes,
and we've done that as we've transitioned from coal as a fuel source. We have new opportunities like Atlantic Carbon, which are looking beyond coal as a fuel source, really as part of the manufacturing base of Pennsylvania. And so we don't get to the positive. The one side wants to tell its story, wants to drive a narrative, whether it's on the liberal side or the conservative side, and the accomplishments get washed away. Now, we still have significant budget problems in Pennsylvania. Matter of fact, we're about $220 million under projections. And that was, from my view, I understood that. We didn't put together a very strong budget this year. However, there were some highlights. For the waste coal industry, for example, Panther Creek, which has a facility in Carbon County, coalition of Democrats and Republicans, we were able to put a tax credit into this year's budget, $7.5 million for our waste coal industry. Trying to make the point and recognize that not only is that jobs, there's 25 folks that were laid off in Panther Creek. Hopefully that tax credit is going to bring all of those folks back. That's 25 families in northeastern Pennsylvania with good wages. But also in reclaiming all the abandoned coal lands. I was just with Mike Ziak of the Earth Conservancy yesterday and talking with a developer from Philadelphia that's looking at some of our sites. There were nearly 20,000 acres of abandoned coal land. That's polluted streams and rivers. The waste coal industry, partnering with the Earth Conservancy, has helped us reclaim over 2,000 of those acres. And when you reclaim that acreage, you're now giving economic opportunity to the next new job. We have a facility that's ready to go online that may create 1,000 new jobs on a former abandoned mine land site. That partnership, public-private, put the politics aside, that's just good business sense.
Yes.
And so that's what I've been about. That's what we're trying to
All right, let's talk about good business, okay?
Sure.
In case you just tuned in, folks, I'm talking to Senator John Yudichak. Let's talk about good business. I always tell people, please, before I vote for John Yudichak, and before I made my statement in saying that I truly believe that you would be a great governor, it's because I know you. I've seen you I've seen what you've done. You've talked. You've talked the walk. You've always been. Now, have you won all the time? No. But the point is, you never look at a person and say you're a Democrat, you're a Republican. You do what is right. But when we talk about qualifications, this is what I think is wrong with a straight Democrat, straight Republican. We have people, my mother and father were born Democrats. And I mean, that's all they were told, vote straight Democrat. Never worried about who was it, but vote straight Democrat. So I think those are the terrible things these days. I think if you put in people who are qualified, who have sense, business sense, sometimes we wouldn't be in the situations, because you may be the nicest guy in the world, John, but you have no qualifications, okay? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm born and raised a Democrat, and those values are shaped, of course, by your parents. My parents came out of kind of the Great Depression era families,
sure.
and FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Yep. But if you look back at the history, and Franklin Delano, he was not necessarily an anti-business. He wanted to create jobs, but he also felt there was an opportunity for the public sector, for government to play a role. And I've always believed it. It's the foundation. We're the ones that the public sector, government, we need to invest in roads and bridges. We need to set the infrastructure so that the private sector can create the jobs. It's the private sector that's going to create the jobs. So I've always been a pro-business Democrat. The Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce, that doesn't endorse too many Democrats these days, has been very good to me. I mean, they did an op-ed piece pointing out that I get that you have to be bipartisan. You have to look at the issue through the lens of, is this going to create jobs? Are we going to create opportunity? And I've always felt the Democratic Party was about opportunity. Now, of course, there are many Republicans that I work with. My time in the legislature, coming up on 20 years, only 2 years was in the majority as a Democratic member of the House. So that means 18 of those years, I had to find a way to deal with Republicans, both in the House and the Senate. And we've been successful at that.
Yeah,
I think it's the approach you take in coming in, not with a predisposed agenda and saying Democrats good, Republicans bad, or Republicans good, Democrats bad. That short circuits thinking. I like to think through the issues. I like to see how it's going to impact the region I represent, the people I represent, and Pennsylvania as a whole, and then make a thoughtful decision. I think I think the media, I think the public, the voters, have to push more of their legislators to be thoughtful in how they approach. Don't give us the standard line. Don't give us the company line. Give us what you think is best for the people that you serve. And that's what it all comes back to. And you get to a question earlier that you made, how did this happen? How did I take this approach to politics? My father, as a mentor in politics, always kept me grounded. Remember where you come from. And there was a great line one of my friends used, said, look, you know how you never forget where you came from? Never leave. I've never left Greater Nanticoke area. I've never left Plymouth Township, where I was born and raised. It's where I'm raising my girls with my wife, Heather. I'm invested here. Emotionally, personally, my values were born here. That's why I think you can be a better representative and representing people of all walks of life.
Well, I'll tell you, and you're doing that. Folks, I'm talking to Senator John Yudichak. The Ben Franklin close. We do it in sales all the time. You're familiar with the Ben Franklin close, are you? Okay.
I don't think so.
Here's what it is. Well, here's the deal. So I want to vote, I'm looking to vote for a person. You have pros and you have cons. And you said you've never been 100% right on love. So you say, what is the issue? What is the person? And you do your research. And you put everything that's good about that. Then you put everything that's bad about it, as much as you can exhaust. What about all the good things about John Yudichak? What has he done? What are some of the things, that are con? When you're all done, it's a simple decision. You just add how many pros you have and how many negatives you have. And if the pros outweigh the negatives, you have your answer. And that's what I'm saying, people with this general election with the presidency. Just put them down. What are the pros? There's not 100% perfect there, but at least you have a better idea of what you're doing. I'm talking to Senator John Yudichak. Folks, we're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 24/7, you can watch all of our programs on ssptv.com. Now, HD in the Greater Hazelton area, folks, if you're watching us Channel 13, go to 513. In Comcast in Pottsville, Channel 190 every day. Channel 92, Wilkes-Barre, Mountaintop, Kingston area, and Channel 190, Lackawanna County. My email, sam@ssptv.com. Talking to Senator John Yudichak. Good friend of mine. Guy is solid. He's honest. He does a great job. 14th Senatorial District. Now, we talked about, working, communicating. There's 50 senators, state senators, maybe too many in the state of Pennsylvania. I don't know. But anyway, you have to deal with them. All right. We have concerns. Senior citizens always, I think, are always, the vultures come out in election time for the seniors, okay? And sometimes they may underestimate them because they're not as stupid as people think they are. They're very intelligent, all right? But we have other problems. The biggest problem we have, and you talk to any law enforcement, drug problems, opioid problems. And we've had Dr. Mead has had forums on this and just talking about the problems. So now I know you've had many meetings, etc. Where are we at, John, with these problems?
Well, one on the senior issue, staying in the bipartisan vein, Senator Lisa Baker, Representative Aaron Coffer, both Republican legislators in Luzerne County, we host together a senior fair. We're doing it down at the National Guard Center down in Kingston. We're doing that next Thursday. We usually get about 1,000 seniors come out. We'll have 50 vendors. Seniors will have a little light lunch and get access to all the state agencies, all the county agencies, all the various agencies that can be of assistance to our seniors. We do one in Carbon County with Representative Doyle Heffley down and Jim Thorpe. It's wonderfully attended. They're great events because it's a one-stop shop for our seniors. Yes. Any help they need on property tax, rent rebate, the PACE program, etc., they can come and get assistance. On the opiate issue, clearly it's a major issue in Pennsylvania. In Luzerne County, heroin, drug overdoses are the #1 cause of death. Not cancer, not heart disease, not automobile accidents. That's unacceptable. It tears families apart. It goes across socioeconomic guidelines. Rich, middle class, lower income families, they're all touched by this, in addition to the community at large, whether it's home invasions, crime, violent crime, gangs. We started, if you remember, 6 years ago. It's almost more than 6 years ago now. Congressman Barletta and I formed Operation Gang Up. We recognized that international drug cartels and gangs out of Philadelphia, New York, were driving drugs into our community. We did a few things. One, we got Pennsylvania's first anti-gang law on the books to make it illegal to recruit juveniles into these gangs. We created the mobile street crime unit through the Attorney General's office that was first deployed. Its first deployment was here in Hazleton. Took 35,000 packets of heroin off the streets in Hazleton. That's unbelievable. So it really opened my eyes, and we recognized that we had to do more than just pass new laws or put more police on the street. We have to tackle this at a very early age, and that's education. And we created the SHINE program. The SHINE program in Carbon County, the SHINE program in Luzerne County, and it's going very well.
Is it working?
This past budget, we were able to get $400,000 in a line item for the Carbon County program, $400,000 in a line item for the Luzerne County program. And it's wonderful. It's now in 5 school districts, including Hazleton. In the Maple Street Elementary, we opened up a center in addition to your career academies. That's an investment in the future of Pennsylvania, investing in these children, making sure they're achieving academically, make sure they're not dropping out. We have over 300 kids dropping out of high schools in Luzerne County each and every year. 300 kids. They're going to find their way to a very difficult life, whether that's trying to find a job, whether that's drugs, whether that's crime. We need to empower these families, empower families that are struggling, and the best way to do that is through education and through programs like the SHINE. Now, the governor just announced, and we put $15 million in this year's budget, that we're going to make a special initiative on the opiates. And a lot of that is how we prescribe drugs. If you go into the ER, if you your aches and pains and you get prescribed a drug, and all of a sudden you're addicted,
Yep.
And the prescription drugs are more expensive, and you go to a street drug. That's unacceptable. So we passed legislation to have a prescription registry, so that there's better coordination between the prescribing physician and the pharmacist that dispenses the drugs. So we do have to focus, and then we've created excellent centers throughout Pennsylvania to help folks that get addicted, so powerfully addicted to this drug, to help get them off of that drug, and also empowering our EMTs and our police departments to save lives when they have an overdose.
John, I've interviewed many law enforcement, the district attorneys, Christine Holman, Schuylkill County, Salavanis, Chief Speziale, you name any law enforcement in the state of Pennsylvania. They all agree that passing a marijuana law is, and I know we have coalitions out there saying that it's not the gateway drug, okay, they all unanimously say it is the wrong thing to do, other than medical. Okay, let's not get that confused. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, we passed medicinal marijuana.
Yeah.
That took some time.
Yeah.
I don't think the full legalization of marijuana, as you have in Colorado and in Washington State, I don't think there's going to be a debate on that anytime soon. My view is, and it was the same way that I evolved on the issue of medical cannabis, I want the scientists, I want the doctors to drive it. And when they tell me this is of value to a child who has epilepsy, or a child who has some other disorder, or a veteran returning from war, to help them deal with post stress disorders, I'd let that science drive it. And so that's why I was a vote for medicinal marijuana. Until we get a body of work and a body of research how that is dispensed, it's going to probably roll out this year, starting at the end of this year, and in 2017 will be the full rollout. Let's wait and see. Let's see before we talk about full legalization. We certainly have a body of data that's going to be in Colorado and in Washington State. Let's look at these other states. Pennsylvania is never a rush to the issue state. We take our time, we evaluate. So that's how I look at the full legalization effort right now. Let's see how medicinal marijuana works. Let's make sure that it's driven by science, not by rhetoric, not by the politics of the day, and then we'll have that debate a few years down the road.
So you need to deal with facts here.
Yeah.
Okay, facts. 4 daughters. What are their ages?
The birthday months are coming up, so they'll be turning 11. The twins will be 9, and the baby will be 5.
Okay. 9?
The twins, yeah.
And the baby. How old's the baby?
She's going to be 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said you live here.
Yes,
Okay.
Plymouth Township.
So when I come back after break, I've always said I love my grandchildren dearly, but I'm worried about them. I'm concerned about them. Not concerned about the environment they live in. Okay, and so what I want to know is what is the state, what is our senators doing, representatives doing to protect my grandchildren? We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. 24/7 SSPTV.com. On the road to 2016 election, my guest today, Senator John Yudichak. No theme, just he and I are talking about different things. I don't get a chance. He doesn't invite me to the house. He has 4 kids running all over the place. 4 girls you have. I have 3 grandchildren. I'm really concerned, John. I'm nervous about where they're going to go, what's going to happen. Now, I'm sure you feel the same about your four daughters. So what goes through your mind?
Well, we want the best for our children, our grandchildren, and that's why I'm in public life. We talked earlier in the program about cynicism. There's a lot of positive things happening in our community. I just toured a facility yesterday in Wilkes-Barre, a company called Pepper Jam. They were started here, homegrown entrepreneurs in the information technology business. They've created this company that was bought by eBay, a Fortune 50 company, and has grown out of eBay. We have a project which we're calling Innovation Square in Wilkes-Barre. It's with our colleges, Wilkes and King's, the city of Wilkes-Barre, Penn State, Wilkes-Barre, in addition to the community college. That company is going to create 200 jobs in downtown Wilkes-Barre. The average wage, starting wage, is $65,000 a year, and they're all young kids coming out of our area colleges. Wow. That's tremendous.
That is fabulous.
That's the news story that I want to tell about Wilkes-Barre and about northeastern Pennsylvania. I want to invest in the best of us, and I want to invest in the future. And so, yes, there are issues of drugs and crime and chronic unemployment and a lack of investment in our education system. But there are great stories, and I want to inspire. Politicians should be about inspiring this country, inspiring people to the better angels of themselves, and that's what we are about. So, yes, I as a father now, there's a different outlook that you have, and there is a pragmatic nature to how I approach the job, but I still want to inspire those 4 daughters. I want to inspire them to be their best, and that there are opportunities here in northeastern Pennsylvania, tremendous opportunities for them to live out their days in a very productive job and in a great community. And so that's what we're going to do for the next several years as your state senator.
I could hear your wife telling you, John, you better do what is right. I could, because believe me, wives are fabulous, and they're the backbone. I mean, I could just see that, because I could just know that she's there, making sure that you're doing the right things for your children and also for the community. John, I mean this sincerely. I would hope someday you decide to run for governor, because I think what you could bring to the state of Pennsylvania. Honesty, open lines of communications, and you're a Democrat. They always say, I remember one of your friends says, John Yudichak's the only Democrat. You're like, no, absolutely not. My relatives are still Democrats. But that's just party. They vote for the person. Right. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah. To be sure, and I always appreciate that you mentioned my name and the office of governor in the same breath. It's very flattering.
Is Wolf nervous now?
I'm running for state senate. I'm the state senator here, and I enjoy it very much. I had a lady just in picking up some groceries the other day. Says, hey, how do you like it? I said, look, I love it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. I love serving the people of the 14th Senatorial District, Luzerne and Carbon County. They're great people. And the best compliment that you have given me and the people have given me in the 14th Senatorial District is, hey, he's one of us.
That's
exactly. And that's the highest compliment I could be.
Believe me, that's exactly the way I feel, the same way. But listen, I know you're going to run a state senator. You're going to win. There's no, you're there. But think about that governorship. John Yudichak, folks, 14th Senatorial District. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.